This evening's meeting. We're hosting this meeting because we felt it was an important meeting to be had. Some of you will know that towards the end of last year, this church was protested by Nazis, not anti-Nazis, by Nazis who were out on the main street. It was just after Israel had invaded in the Gaza Strip. And we were out there and they were shouting not only obscenities, but of course shouting death to Jews, death to gays, and basically recalling the effects of the Holocaust. And we've had to up our security a lot in this church over the last couple of years or so. And we also know that this isn't just a story of Cathedral. We know that this is a story of the LGBT community, specifically in this area, which is lovingly known as the gayborhood. And so it was important for us to begin to have conversation about what does that look like, and what are our options about how to protect ourselves, but also how to stand together as a community. So I'm really grateful that there are so many wonderful people here this evening. Mike Hendrix is actually going to chair this conversation and lead us through this time. But grateful to every single one of you that have taken the time out to be here. You really are people who care, obviously, and we care deeply about this community, and we want to make sure that we continue to stand. If you want restrooms, that's always an important thing. You don't need to raise your hand and ask permission. Just leave. Unlike church, but the restrooms are in the lobby, and they are just by the double glass doors. If you go out of this room and take a left, and you'll see restrooms right there. With that, again, thank you very much indeed, and I'm going to hand it off to Mike.
All right, thank you so much for being here. As I look around the room, it's a smaller crowd, but I'm really encouraged by the faces I see here. And so for some of our elected officials who may or may not know, we have the Roundup owners here. We appreciate them for being here. We have Hamburger Mary's. We have Cavern, which owns most of the gay bars on the Strip. I'm filling in for Harvey from the Hidden Door, since he was under the weather today. And we have a lot of different business owners from the LGBTQ plus community who are kind of concerned about this issue. So obviously we've all been coordinating and trying to figure out what type of security solution we might kind of be able to come up for this neighborhood, this district. And we've been quite troubled by the response time that we've been receiving by the Dallas PD. Let me just give you an example of on one of the particular Sundays, we had approximately 800 people trying to leave the 10 o'clock service, and another 600 trying to come in for the 11:45. And we had Nazis that basically blocked the exits and the entrances. It was really disturbing. Many of us, like myself, who volunteer here at the church, we went out to try to give some coverage. People were terrified. We had people screaming racist slurs at African American people. We had people calling for their death. We heard people calling for the annihilation of the Jews. We heard people calling different individuals obese, fat, and they should die of a heart attack. Things that no person should have to hear when they're going to a place of worship, or no kid should have to hear as they're leaving children's church. It was appalling to me. And I've been in a lot of different political situations as a progressive Democrat, and I've stood up against a lot of MAGA people and a lot of right-wing Christian coalition. But I will say this much. I have never in my life been faced with the type of rhetoric and hate that I heard that day. It was scary. And not only was I afraid for my life, I was very much afraid for the individuals who were leaving the church that day. And then we also have seen that move on to the Strip. We've seen people trying to protest drag shows. As we know, Representative Anchia and I fought that legislation pretty successfully to a certain degree, and now it was killed by the courts. And as we move on, this is going to reach a boiling point at some point in time. something's going to go wrong. You don't have people wearing masks outside of a church or a synagogue or outside of a brunch spot with bear mace and carrying concealed weapons. And the response time for the local PD is around 40 minutes to a situation like that. And then they just send one person out to check the situation, and then they're like, oh my God, this is really bad. And so then it takes them another 20 minutes to get another 6 or 7 cops out to kind of help alleviate the situation. And so this can't continue to happen. And as we move forward as a community, we need to start to work towards protecting ourselves. And something that all of us in the community who have been meeting, and we've had multiple meetings, and one of the things that we wanted to bring everybody together today to talk about is how we can not only make our communities more secure and safer, but how can we think outside of the box? And one of those things that we were thinking about was possibly creating a MUD or an improvement district for security purposes. Because this cannot continue to go on. And I don't want to sit back here, and I know that most of our religious faith leaders and most of our business owners here, we don't want to be having this conversation when we have a bunch of dead bodies, or a shooting, or a bombing, or a firebombing. And so we're trying to get ahead of the situation. We're trying to come up with some solutions. And so that's one of the things that we're looking at doing. And so we wanted to kind of bring everybody together to kind of talk about that. But first of all, we also want to kind of hear some of your concerns. And so I will open it up to each of you in the audience, because I know there are a lot of security concerns in this neighborhood that you may want to bring up and address. Go ahead.
Why don't we have a human rights commission for the city of Dallas? Fort Worth has had one since 1967.
I'm not a city council member, so I'll pass.
We used to have one. we used to have one. And, but that was way, I'm Paula Blackmon. I represent East Dallas, White Rock Lake area. And I know that we used to have a human rights commission. Joyce Lockley was, and Pat White, I believe. A commission will set forth ordinances and make recommendations. I think we as a community can come together and really create more change, but also create a human rights commission, or just to see how we live together as a community. I think this community, we can find solutions, because he sent the videos. It was horrible. It was not, nobody should feel unsafe in their community. And it was, and like you said, they were wearing masks. They looked like they were prepared for war. And I think we've got to figure out a way to keep everybody who comes to worship, who comes to have brunch on Sunday, who comes to have a good time with their friends, in a safe manner. And so, I mean, I'm happy to ask my colleagues. I mean, I know you've been on longer than I have, but you know, a human rights commission could definitely start the rhetoric and how society needs to treat one another, because that is an underlying issue. Is society's treatment of each other is something that we need to be more it needs to be recognized and addressed and called out. So
Go ahead, Omar.
Thank you, Councilmember Blackmon. My name is Omar Narvaez. I represent District 6, which is West Dallas, Northwest Dallas, Bachman Lake, Love Field, basically everything west of 35 until you get to about
Irving.
until you get to Irving, exactly, up to 635. I have made the request to staff, and Chair Janie Schultz is the chair of that committee that would be working on that. And while I was on the committee last term, I did make that request, and I'm not sure what happened. I had to remind staff and the chair, like, hey, don't forget, just because I'm not on the committee anymore, that this is something we need to look into, see how it would work, what it would take. And so I'm waiting for that update as we get there. Creating a commission takes time. It's not something that we just get to snap our fingers and it's done. overnight. But exactly what Councilmember Blackmon said is we can create and decide what needs to be done here as a community now as we work towards a commission, because a commission I don't think would be able to solve the solution that we have right now. But just that's the update that I have for you for now. Yes, I got knocked out and I think you got habits. Great, good.
Can I
If you
ask
wanna
you a
say anything,
question?
Mr.
Did those people that protest, they have a permit to organize? Isn't that required?
It's on public, they were on the sidewalk, so as long as they're moving on the sidewalk,
So that anybody can just
and
come up
they
here
can,
and do
and
anything
they can
on the
come in,
sidewalk?
and they're not disrupting traffic, and it's not, and organized with, well, they did have bullhorns.
They had,
I mean,
it was
they really,
organized
the
and they
thing
were
is
blocking
that
traffic.
they were walking a little, they were walking a fine line.
And this.
But, and yes, but you know what, permitting has never crossed their mind, they're thinking of harming and scaring and just, and so, and they had placards and everything.
Yeah, and they actually were blocking our driveways. And
So they already violated several infractions,
correct.
even
correct.
without a permit.
Yeah, so it was dependent upon the cops to actually show up to help.
We had to wait for the cops to actually show up to remove them, because one of the things that we've learned is our security team here at the church can't remove them even if they're blocking an exit or a driveway.
And I wouldn't want them to, because they look like they were ready for
Dangerous.
war.
Were they cited?
So I was looking forward to the police chief being here today so we could ask him further questions, but it looks like he has not been able to attend. So we'll follow up with him after this. But one of the things that would also be helpful to us is to find out what information they were able to get, because they not only showed up here at the church, they also showed up at a synagogue. They also showed up outside of brunch spots, and they even showed up in different taquerias where they literally like ran people out of the restaurant because they said they looked like Jews. And so this is just it's crossed the line and it's unsafe. I see Mikey back here, and Mikey has one of the largest owns JRs, TMC, Sue Ellen's, and S4. And so I know we've had a lot of conversations back and forth, and can you kind of give us an update on the situation on the drive?
We have security. We hire a CID to do security. We spend approximately over $15,000 a month in just security services to keep the block safe, along with roundup doing the other side of the block. And we've been successful at keeping people off our sidewalk per se. But when it gets to that public area, the easement, the corner area where the lights are, the customers tend to get attacked or bombarded by individuals that, just like the ones at the church, they get bombarded, and it happens seasonally. You hear certain individuals throughout the community, they joke around, they call them the local Bible thumpers or whatnot. But the reality of the situation is they're not particularly preaching faith, they're just hiding behind faith to cause fear into a community. And it hurts, and it creates this contention between different individuals, and you literally see them go away and try to avoid that violent nature that everybody tends to lately has been gravitating towards. But because security's on the block, it helps. And it's gonna help if we can figure out how to get either security or DPD or someone along that lines to stay in the area and have more visibility. Because right now we have no visibility at all for safety, security, whatnot. The only thing we have are security guards, and they can only do so much.
It's kind of increased by the numbers in the Oakland area, like the 90s we had, we went through this in the 90s,
Well,
remember? We did this in the 90s.
Yeah, we looked at those numbers, but when the response time is so low, which we're seeing, it can take up to an hour to an hour and a half for someone to respond for a car break-in. So by the time they get there, the cars are already stolen. So if you have a quicker response time, then you're gonna have a higher increase in crime, right?
I work a lot with the Dallas Police from my days at Walmart, and I know that they have priority levels. I think the police are pro this helping, but I also know that Dallas has a high crime statistic throughout the city, and they prioritize calls based on human injury.
Yeah.
So that's why the response, I know this for a fact, response team is slower than normal. It's not, they don't wanna come, they have to prioritize each call
Correct, yeah.
based on human
So
casualty.
we did meet with
Garcia?
our chief for this area and a couple of the deputies. Yes, correct. And it was a great meeting. We had 6 of the business owners that are here in this room tonight. Were there for lunch that day, and the response that they said was, "We're sorry, we just don't have the manpower. You guys need to come up with another solution." And so I think that's why we're here today, is because we're trying to come up with a solution, and that's why we're looking at creating a MUD or an improvement district for security purposes.
So I have is it usually around the weekends, or is it any time that you're open, that you're seeing these incidences?
General violence in general, that's not faith-based violence or protesting or whatnot, that's activity. And we've been successful at keeping our area of the neighborhood safe by keeping security on staff 24 hours a day or whatnot, and cameras available so that it deters, and a lot of deterrence, and staff available to keep the crimes away. But surrounding areas, for example, down the streets in the neighborhoods, we hear about car break-ins left and right. We hear about cars getting stolen left and right. We literally have people leaving areas of the block that took gunpoint robberies and whatnot, and they come to our clubs, whether it be Roundup or Station 4, because they know we have security on site, and they ask for our help, and they stay on our site until we can get DPD out there to make the reports. And so even though the report's not on that location and they actually go to the physical location to make the report, they call us and they actually come to our location because we have security all the time on site, and it's a safe haven. But most of the area is not like that. So if you go down the street to the Alum, or you go even a little bit further down to Kings, there's no security, no police officers, no presence of protection and safety in that area. Or you go a little bit further north down the street, closer to Turtle Creek, which is a higher income neighborhood, high rises and everything, but still no security or police presence in the area. You still get a lot of robberies. Yes, sir.
So we've been powwowing.
Okay.
We've been powwowing, and we all represent different areas, but we all have commonalities in what you're feeling around the whole. So we're kind of taking elements of what we've done in different parts of our district to apply here for conversation starters. Okay.
Cool, thank you.
So I think it's important to distinguish between the 2 different types of crimes that you're talking about. One of them is I'm sorry, Paul Ridley, District 14. One of them, the car thefts and car robberies, burglaries, are not targeted to this community. The other things that you're talking about are, but I think it's important for our discussion tonight to distinguish between those 2, because we have car thefts that are happening all over the city in all districts. It's not unique to Uptown or Oak Lawn, and that's not targeting this particular community. That's something that has been elevated during 2023. DPD is aware of that. They have various programs to try to stem that, whether it be bait cars that they'll plant in a neighborhood, and once they're broken into or stolen, they can track them and arrest the perpetrators. That's something that they are targeting. Overall, citywide, violent crime was down over 10% last year. For the 3rd year in a row, it declined, which is really excellent for 9th largest city in the country. That doesn't mean that we can't do more, but violent crime is on the downturn rather than the upsurge. The one exception to that last year was murders, which are essentially an escalation of an aggravated assault. The aggravated assault statistic was down for the year, and so we're just seeing more of them resulting, a higher percentage of the aggravated assaults resulting in murder. And many of those are where people know each other. They're domestic violence. They're things that are hard to anticipate and hard to prevent. But DPD is aware of that, and they're working on that as well. So did you have something you wanted to add to that?
Sure, and thank you. What we were talking about as we were all conversing while we're hearing is a public improvement district is definitely something that the community should think about. Whatever your map is that you decide you want to be part of it. If Cavan is already spending $15,000 a month, imagine if everybody pulled their money for short term. A week. Oh wow, 15,000 a week. Okay, so
$60,000 a month?
okay, so that's
Oh,
60,000 a
I-
month. So that's what, $720 a year.
$1 million bucks.
And so let's call it $1 million. You probably can afford ENP, which is extra neighborhood patrol, which is you hire actual DPD and the cars. It just depends on what you want. You set the hours. You're basically their boss. They work in your area until you can get that public improvement district. A public improvement district is a self-taxing area. So let's say every business in that PID is going to do an extra 2% on your property tax. But all that money goes right back to your public improvement district. It just filters through the city, and we send you whatever is brought up, whatever is raised during that fiscal year. Time is of the essence because you have to get them done, I think, by the end of April, and then for us to get it passed, and then it takes the entire next fiscal year before it goes into effect in the next budget, which is October 1. But you have to collect tax for a whole year, and then you get your first check. So short term is try to maybe do something like, I mean, we really need to get y'all with DPD so they can go over the EMP program.
Yeah.
But then the PID would then be able to pay for it because
It pays for
everybody.
sidewalks,
Yeah.
it can pay for anything that improves.
My goal is safety.
But it also can pay for safety. But like your EMP, you could actually host a fundraiser, right? And put it in the fund, so anybody who doesn't live in the district can actually help pay for paying those extra patrol to be in, just circling around the neighborhood. And then what, the good thing about this is those DPD officers, they call right into the station. So they have, so you get a different, it's a customer service level that you can get access to. Unfortunately, that's,
You have to pay for it.
but you have, and some of my neighborhoods have them, and even the smaller neighborhoods have them, and they look at what their crime stats are, and the times that make sense, so they're not patrolling at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday, 10 o'clock more in the morning, because there's nothing happening, but like from 2 to 4 on a Saturday night, because that's when you see a spike, or midnight to 6, or whatever it is. And that may be a short-term solution, and then like I said, you can fundraise for it, you can pass the hat here at church, and it goes back into paying these extra folks to be the eyes and ears, and sometimes just having the car in the neighborhood can deter activity. And I think
All right, and I also want to turn this over to Representative Onchia. He and I have worked very closely on a lot of issues affecting the LGBTQ plus community here and across the state of Texas, and I know that he knows some of the solutions we may be able to introduce in the Texas legislative level.
Yeah, and I had a quick question of our council people. Do y'all have the requisite authority that you need from the state to approve PIDs locally of any kind? So you don't need any extra authority.
Nothing from you.
Because I drafted a bunch of special districts.
MUDs come through you.
MUDs come through us,
Yeah.
right. But I think we're onto something with public improvement districts. Downtown has its downtown improvement district, which is a PID. They have their own security
We're working
plan.
on Koreatown, the PID.
Koreatown
they did. That
PID,
was in the paper.
right. So it sounds like they have their requisite tools that they need at the local level. To the extent you needed something overlaid on that, I'm very happy to help. But I think we fleshed out the challenge and the opportunity here. If what we really need to focus on is deterrence, The way you get deterrence is heightened police presence. I mean, this isn't magic. If you go to the areas that are considered safest, there's usually a very conspicuous police presence that is there in a community. And the other thing I would add on top of that, once you have set up the PID or the enhanced neighborhood patrol, cameras, a very detailed camera plan. You hire a security company to develop that for you, and you make sure everybody knows that the entire area is being surveilled. And again, this isn't magic. If any of you have ever gone to a Jewish school or you've gone to a synagogue, I mean, the very basic security procedures in those places, because they're under constant threat of anti-Semitic attack, are always enhanced. And I know here, having worshiped here on a number of different occasions, there's always a very conspicuous peace officer or two at the front to send the signal to people coming in. Not only that, hey, we're here, but also give people a sense of safety. And again, this is not rocket science, but the PID does provide for the mechanism to have recurring revenue. And just to level set for everybody, the way these public improvement districts work is usually there is a threshold, sometimes 2/3 of the property owners within the district that agree to self-tax, and it binds everybody within the geography of the district. And the metes and bounds of that is set forth in an initial resolution. There are opportunities for notice and public comment, and it really is a nice way to engage the community and make sure everybody is rowing in the same direction on safety, and everybody owns a piece of it, so that there's not a disproportionate share of that security burden that falls on you, where you can have something that everybody is ponying up for and contributing to.
Eventually see is the security not be limited to our because, as you probably know, when we hire a security guard, they're limited to this intersection because that's what we pay for, that's what we insure. But I'd like to see security and safety expand beyond our point, because that individual down the street, let's say at that Valero, or even further down the street at the corner of Kings and Cedar Springs, where it's mostly neighborhoods, they don't have roving security guards or police officers, and crime is here. Now, going to your point where crime is going down, yes, the city has done a great job at getting crime to be reduced from 10 years ago to now. It's phenomenal. There's no more stabbings at an ATM anymore. We don't see that anymore. There's no more robberies in pure daylight. Now they're all in the shadows. That's because we spent a lot of time with local owners and cities and property improvements to bring lighting and everything along the lines. I believe Ridley's office helped get some lighting on the back of Dickinson, and in the past past 3 months we got some lighting back there. Crime is down over there, much safer back there. But what I don't want to see is us go backwards. And since we came out of COVID, we're starting to see an uptick, and it's starting to go backwards in that specific area, not as the city as a whole, but in just the area. And I don't want to see that.
You mentioned lighting, in addition to a police presence, very conspicuous police and security presence, in addition to a security camera plan. The lighting plan is, one of the very basic things that any security consulting firm will provide for the area. And then the PID will provide the recurring revenue to maintain that plan. A lot of times you get cameras up, you get lights up, and within 5 years you have malfunctions, things aren't working anymore. But I do want to move from sort of this blocking and tackling of crime interdiction, which every community deals with, and neighborhoods within a community deal with, and pivot back to this very immediate threat that's occurring with Nazis. Now in this state we do have very permissive laws about the carrying of weapons, right? All of which I voted against. I proudly get an F from the NRA
That's okay.
on my scorecard, very proudly.
Thank you.
That's a badge of honor.
You get an A from me.
I wear it proudly. They called me public enemy number one time. It was really great.
Did you get a poster made?
No, I didn't. So I will say that even you all have seen the cadence, of these sort of extreme gun bills in the legislature. First it was, the Virginia University, Virginia Tech shooting. The response was campus carry, right?
Teacher carry.
Shortly after that, it was open carry. Well, it was concealed carry.
Right.
Then now open carry. Long guns, ironically, so rifles themselves have always been legal. They're not under the penumbra of open carry. That is a holstered weapon that you might see somebody. Then they eliminated training and licensure for open carry. I have a great story about that, by the way. I don't want to burn up a bunch of time, but it's the kind of stuff that makes my head explode. And then most recently, obviously, in response to a school shooting, it was teacher carry, school marshals, and things like that. It's never about reducing risk versus reducing risk of gun violence through licensure, insurance, personal responsibility, background checks, closing loopholes for gun sales that are both private and at gun shows, right? It's this sort of this gun fetish that we have in that represents majority of. And I'm not anti-gun, but there's this desire to increase risk, reduce any regulation that might reduce that risk, and we suffer the consequences of it, right? So these Nazis can, within the law, have long guns, have open carry to the extent they qualify for it. Certainly can have concealed carries if they qualify for it. And the threat there is not abstract, right? It's a very real threat, and not just the slurs and the epithets and the intimidation that may be verbal, but I mean we can track the timeline on violence against the LGBT community up until this last year, but most notably in things like the Pulse nightclub shooting. Again, not abstract at all, very, very, very real, so naturally very, very scary. And I think the only way to deal with this is twofold. Places like this, regrettably, need to continue to harden, need to continue to have a very muscular peace officer presence. I mean, I think not naive to suggest that wouldn't, A, make people feel more comfortable, and B, if something bad were to happen, allow for very quick interdiction, right, by trained peace officers. That is one element to it. The other element is to work with DPD to really set up a perimeter here, so that they have an active presence on days of worship, especially where you have lots of people congregating in one place. The risk to mass casualty, to mass violence is higher, and people look, the type of rhetoric that you hear from state and federal politicians right now, you can draw a straight line from that to violence against marginalized community, people of color, the LGBTQ community. You can just draw a straight line. We saw evidence of it in what feels like recent memory, where you had a white supremacist who was emboldened by the invasion narrative, drove from Allen, Texas to El Paso and gunned down 30 people at a Walmart because he was really motivated by this sort of anti-invasion screed that some of our politicians relish in. And so we're feeling it all around. We had the head of the Department of Public Safety, Colonel McCraw, testify before the legislature, and we asked him, what is the greatest threat that we experience as a state? Is it, obviously our governor believes it's immigration. We spent, I don't know, like $6 billion already, maybe even more, on different iterations of Operation Lone Star. But Colonel McCraw said definitively that the number one threat is actually fringe, right-wing, militant groups, right? He said that unequivocally. And so even before COVID, when I chaired the Mexican American Legislative Caucus, and on the heels of what we saw in El Paso, along with the Black Caucus and the Democratic Caucus, we sent a letter to the governor asking him to really redouble the efforts and focus the efforts of DPS on that very immediate threat. Not surprisingly, we didn't see a pivot from Operation Lone Star to that threat that we see on a regular basis. That said, if it is the desire of this community to have more state troopers available, that's something that we could try to rally the Dallas delegation on. I know that when the mayor wanted more state troopers in South Dallas, I know the governor was happy to oblige. And I'm sure if a group of state legislators, along with council people and others, asked for an enhanced state trooper presence in this area, we might be able to work on something like that. But I would not want to be presumptuous in suggesting that that is the solution, because the community has to want it and want that presence here.
Thank you.
You bet.
Why don't you go?
I wanted to ask, what is being done on the state level to really, as far as I'm concerned, to stop this exploitation, because it's affecting all of us, this exploitation of ignorance that bleeds out into our communities. And because I'm sorry, constant militarization is not going to help our communities. And people driving miles on what they believe to be some sort of mission is ridiculous. And as far as I'm concerned, it's been exploitation from certain parties of these people. And it is bleeding out into our lives, and it's terrifying. Is there anything you can think of that we can do on a state level to stop this? Because, I mean, look what's just happening everywhere.
Yeah, no, in our state, I fear in the current political environment, no. You're not going to get the buy-in from state leaders. I should call them leaders, state politicians in Austin, who like to use marginalized communities as a political football or political bait. We see that with our transgender community that has been on the menu for the last couple of sessions in Austin, and the murder rates among Black trans women have followed the trend of heightened attacks, or rhetorical attacks. Likewise, we see hate crimes also increase when our lieutenant governor, our governor, consistently use the word invasion when describing the seeking of asylum at our southern border, or migration of any kind at our southern border. And so I fear that we're in a period right now where we're all less safe, right? All of us. And I'm not sure that the institutions at the state level are going to be responsive to any calls for moderation in the rhetoric, or any desire to protect those who are most vulnerable. In fact, it's just the opposite.
I saw a question over this way, and then we'll come right to you. Is there a question on the side?
Yeah, so when we're talking about crime statistics, I'd like to differentiate between crime rates and overall crime occurrences. When you guys are talking about decreasing crime rates or decreasing crime statistics, what do you mean specifically?
Well, by that I mean that the number of crimes in the various categories of violent crime has declined. And the 10% figure that I mentioned is 10% year over year as compared to 2022. So it's both an absolute number and a percentage decline.
Okay, and my other question, my question was more relevant to the conversation about 10 minutes ago, but what police call priority currently is protesters who look like they're about to become violent, and how do we escalate the priority?
It's gotta be somebody voting on it.
It's probably a 2 or 3 priority,
Okay.
and,
Number one is bodily harm.
yeah, imminent bodily harm is priority 1. You know, a murder in progress, aggravated assault, where there is threat of bodily injury or imminent property damage, that's a higher priority than just protesting.
And what we've seen with the protesters that have showed up outside the church and some on the strip is they're trying to entice someone to attack them so they can use whatever weapon they have on them at that point in time, because they'll have their video cameras out, they'll yell some of the worst racial slurs you've ever heard, they'll make you feel inferior, and then when you react, which we do see some reactions, and that's why our team here at the church is really good about going out and trying to de-escalate the situation and move people to safety rather than into harm's way. So that's really what they're trying to do. They're trying to escalate a bad situation. I saw a question.
I do, yeah. So for our city council people, why don't we have a hate crimes unit in the DPD? It could just be a file cabinet, a bookshelf, and just part-time one officer, but every endeavor, every single thing you do has some degree of expertise, and having a focal point, I think, would help with coming up with solutions to hate crimes. Rather than cry next time when they have a shooting on Cedar Springs, we take out all the candles, we put all these flowers out there, maybe proactively work on it.
I don't hate crimes unit.
I mean, in my personal experience, being a city council member or elected officials, having a hate crime unit really doesn't do much because all that's going to, it might deter someone, but for the most part, if someone's really apt to do harm to our community, they're going to do that. So I think that's one of the reasons we're here, to try to figure out solutions to be preemptive.
Well, and as you talk about solutions, I kind of was jotting down some notes, but to Raphael, Mr. Anchia's point, we need a plan. You do need a plan. We need to come together as a community, maybe host something at JR's, and come together to get the DPD liaison and actually look at crime, like where the incidences are happening. That way you can look at it we can look at it as tackling as a short term and a midterm and a long term, and seeing what elements, does it need state presence immediately to kind of triage the area, and then as we come in and maybe work on, okay, what in 6 months, or do we put through a PID, do we do in 1 month, do an EMP, or can we get the EMP started next week? So I think we need to, and we did this in far northeast Dallas, as we created a security plan, because there's nothing, and then we're looking at your surrounding neighborhoods, you can create crime VIPs, so volunteers in patrol, we can train them. The good thing about volunteers in patrol, they got a phone that they call when it's a DPD. So I think we've got elements that they come together, and we look at it holistically and plan it, and then work the plan with cameras, with all sorts, with lighting, and looking at, oh wait, we've got a bond package coming through, and this is a black hole over here, there's no light. You know what, let's put 500,000 here and light it up. So I think that's the thing, is we need to look at this, come together, put it on paper, and then start working it.
So I actually have some history with this. The Honorable Adam Medrano is here in the room. He used to be on the city council and represented half of Oak Lawn. He's an Oak Lawn resident as well. Redistricting has changed that, so District 2 no longer has the Oak Lawn area down where the bars are, and that's all now in 14, so that's Mr. Ridley. But it's interesting hearing this, because it was maybe 8 years ago, 5, 6, 8 years ago, we went through the exact same thing, and we put a plan. Adam got us the cameras, he got us lighting, he got trees cut back. I mean, everything that we're saying now. And what typically does happen, and the businesses then did not want the PID. It was offered, they were also offered the MP, but different times, right? I think it sounds like a lot of similar, minus Nazis.
Also minus the 18 aggravated assault that we had that we never caught the person who was doing it.
Right, and back then it was,
That was the scary time that we had to.
Adam,
we
when
were
did you?
facing
yeah,
something.
why
come on
don't,
up
why
here.
don't you come up
Well, yeah,
here?
because if you've already got a plan, maybe we need to use that as a
I've seen
starting
some people
point.
here who were there. I think some folks that were here when that happened, but that was a scary time for us. That was about 2015 when we had about 18 aggravated assaults, and no one was ever caught. One of the things we did, we never had DPD cameras. That's something that we added. Do we need more now? You know, that's something that we need to look
Yeah.
at. Lighting, you know, extra lighting. You already put some lighting in some of the areas that are dark, and some of them is just trees are blocking the
Oh,
light,
yeah.
or if they need to be upgraded to the new lights,
Yeah.
or right, that's the type of things that we were looking at the time. Yes, I used to drive around looking at all the lights to make sure they were on. But I don't know if anybody does that anymore, but I used to do that.
We're gonna hire you.
Because I'm like, I'm not gonna say that the lights are out on my district and when this is happening. But also, I think that, like again, working together, yeah, it's true that y'all did not want to PID, so it's good that you guys are talking about maybe that's something you want to take a look at, because at that time, no one wanted to do it, especially when you hear you're gonna be taxed a little bit more at the time. So, I mean, this is like deja vu to me. So I was listening, I'm like, we know how to do this, let's just get it done.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think making those improvements. We also did VIP, volunteers in patrol, those type of things. And we had at the time, of course, everybody wants to participate. We had 50 people doing it. And then, you know, time goes away, we have our lives to live and it goes away. So maybe that's something else that we can revisit. Not sure if we still have that same program, what it's called now with the new chief. But we've done this before. I have faith in all these guys up here that are representing it. Mr. Ridley's doing a great job representing the district and already working on lighting, so that's something we do. But it's just those type of things that we need to concentrate and focus on, and it can be done. So luckily we're not having that.
Adam, was there an actual written plan, or like, did y'all put something on paper?
There probably was, and you know, we worked hand in hand with DPD. I did not see
Okay.
DPD. Are they walking in now? Yeah, they're walking in now. So that was one of the things that I was concerned about walking in here, is that I did not see DPD at this meeting. But they are here, and I think it's our LGBTQ. How you doing? It's
Come
good
on
to
up
see you.
here.
It's been a while. Come on up here. But yeah, so we worked directly with at the time it was Amber Roman, and then yes. So we've done this before. We've worked together, and I know that we'll be able to be successful again with these guys in charge. Here you go.
So if you want to introduce yourselves and then let them know things that have been, I know y'all are in at the end, but they were asking some questions about crime and things like that, but I'll let them.
Oh, I wish I'd been more prepared. I do have a lot of
you're
stats,
good.
but I'm Megan Sykes. I'm the LGBTQ liaison.
I'm Leah Hutchings. I'm in the Office of Community Affairs.
Last time we sent over a lieutenant and also the chief over at Channel 5, which is this area over here. But unfortunately they couldn't be here today. So we came to sit in and hear what y'all had to say.
Here are all the notes.
So we'll kind of get you our notes. We're in
Absolutely.
the process of wrapping up,
Okay.
and we appreciate you for being here.
I have a question for them. I'm reading correspondence from the Dallas Police Department to then Attorney General Abbott about the raid of the club, Baz, in 2010. One of the reasons they claimed not to release the complete information to a Freedom of Information Act made by the Dallas Voice was that they needed to keep certain information secret so they could do future raids. What type of policy changes are in writing to prevent the Dallas Police Department from raiding a bath in the year 2024 or raiding any other establishment in Dallas? Because the presupposition of this conversation has been that when you show up, that's sort of a solution to a problem, but it's really not clear that you necessarily are. There has been no policy change made that I can find record of that you wouldn't necessarily not, I mean, you might be involved with doing a raid yourself. Do you have any answer?
I lost the question somewhere. That was a lot. I didn't.
So what's gonna keep another raid to a bathhouse in 2024?
Well, yeah, because one of the claims they made in the letter to the Attorney General Abbott Texas Attorney General Abbott was that they could not release certain information because they needed to keep their methods secret so they could conduct another raid. In the sense then, there's been no inquiry into this question, but it's still an open question that the police themselves could raid an establishment. I think it's unlikely, but then again, it was sort of unlikely that it would happen in 2010. It's one of the 30 most notorious bathhouse or bar raids put out by the Advocate on a global historical basis from 1903 to the present, and yet there's still unresolved questions. So your idea and this plan is that the police show up, problem solved. I want to make sure that the police show up, they're not a problem themselves. I have a Freedom of Information Act request. I paid the money for the information today, but I do not know as of this evening that there's any policy change that would prevent another raid. So I think it's unlikely.
That is probably a really great question. What I would love, and if you don't mind, if we could put that in kind of an email form so I can,
Sure, I'd be glad to have an email.
that and answer all the questions that you have and answer them properly.
Okay. Do you have a card?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, great.
Excellent.
Okay.
Actually, I do have a relevant question to what you guys were talking about. Thank you, Megan, for coming in.
Thank you, Megan.
But this is more along PID and MUDs. So we have a city level PID, which is based on bonds, state level PIDs, and state level MUDs. What is the difference, and if there are differences in how they work, and can they work together so we can get to an end solution that we're talking about? Because I know I'll be funding a lot of things, and so will the rest of us will be funding a lot of things in pieces until we get these bonds set up and these bills set up. But until then, how do we make them work together? Can we get 2 slices of the pie versus 1 slice of the pie and make this district work?
All right, so this is more along mine and Representative Anchia's forte. So I've worked with the Magnolia Improvement District out of Montgomery County to help them create an improvement district for security purposes, and also with the city of the Woodlands. But ultimately that goes through the legislature, and it's usually a local consent calendar bill, and so I'm going to defer to Representative Anchia.
Yeah, in the legislature, we have a special committee that deals with all kinds of special districts, whether MUDs or municipal management districts or other creations at the state level that authorize a geographic zone and gives them certain, well, police powers, right, municipal powers. It's unclear to me how a MUD might fit in this situation. I think step one is a PID. I'd like to explore that a little bit more. Municipal utility districts are oftentimes used by real estate developers in rural or suburban or ex-urban areas to develop infrastructure, right? That's usually what they're used for. If the powers of the PID are insufficient to pursue the ends that the community wants to pursue, then I think you would look at another type of district at the state level. I'm not sure that a MUD is what you need. I'm not ruling it out either, but I would really have to think about how the basket of powers that you would have in a PID would be enhanced through a municipal utility district. But it is unclear to me.
So it sounds like what we kind of have a pledge here is to work on the PID from this angle, and then to look at the possibility if there is some areas that a PID isn't going to fulfill all of our needs, then we can look at it from a state legislative standpoint. Go ahead.
So a PID is basically a city that is self-taxed. So we create a PID, we create our own self-tax. A MUD is basically grants from the state based on some sort of tax form transaction.
It's also a geography.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then, so both technically could work together, I'm assuming, if it got to that point. But what you're saying is we should start off with a PID. So in the PID form, where does this tax money come from? Because there's multiple types of bonds: property tax bonds, sales tax bonds, transactions bonds.
the PID is a self-tax on your property tax. So so whatever your property tax rate is for the governing agencies that you typically pay, then there would be a public improvement district. So Oaklawn PID, and it's you determine what that is going to be. You know, whether it's 1%, 2%. There is a max that you can do. Most of them don't hit that max. They start out at a smaller number to kind of see how it works, see if the dollars come in that they really need. Then you create your own nonprofit board that runs the PID. It's so successful, very successful PIDs. Deep Ellum Foundation, Uptown PID,
Downtown Dallas.
yeah, Design District PID. I mean, there's quite a few that are very, very good, and they have different reasonings for having the PID. Most of them do it for the security portion, but some of them, like the Design District, doesn't use EMP or anything like that. What they use theirs is more for beautification, fixing up different things, art, but that's what they want. And then you have others. We do have some neighborhoods, like residential, that do it as well. It just depends on how they want to do it. The PID works because then everybody pays their fair share versus, oh, just Cabin is doing it and just the Roundup. And all of a sudden then you're like, yeah, well, why am I paying for everybody else? I just want to take care of my patrons, right? And so, but it just depends on what the business district wants to do. They may not want to do it. I don't know. I can't tell you. It's a process. There's a petition. You've got to, get a lot of stuff done in order to get it going. So it's a longer term solution to get your funding, but everything raised off that self-tax comes to the city, and then we just send that board a big old check, and then y'all pay for whatever you want to pay for it with those dollars. And there's certain criteria, certain things that you may spend the dollars on, and then there's certain things you may not spend the money on. So yeah, I mean, there's a whole process to it.
The city.
Yeah.
I saw another question, hand raised. Okay.
So if my understanding is right about municipal utility districts and they're for developing infrastructure, is that limited to certain types of infrastructure? Or can that funding be applied to, for example, lighting? Like that's one of the solutions that was being discussed.
My understanding is with the municipal improvement districts I've worked with in different counties around the state, yes, you can use it for sidewalks, you can use it for roads, you can also, and that would be an improvement district versus a MUD.
You can use the PID for those things.
And you can use the PID.
But remember, you have to wait till they go into session.
Yes.
So that will be, it'll.
2025 at
yeah.
least. So it's a long process.
Sometimes it's easier just to work, did I say that with the city?
Yeah. So it looks like through all
But
of our.
I do think you need a plan.
Right.
I don't think you should just say, let's go off and do a PID.
Right.
Yeah, that's the funding mechanism. But what is it that you want funded? And I think that is the question that everybody comes to the table to really look at. And it sounds like there was something sketched. There's already a framework. Just take it off and dust it off and see, is it relevant? Do we need to update it to 2025 standards, lighting standards? And
I promised to try to get everyone out by 7 p.m. and we're 10 minutes over. So what I really wanted to say is thank you so much for coming, because
I have one last question. What about the safety of the gay people outside your privileged little district? What about the safety of the gay people in the rest of Dallas?
Well, in the meantime, since this is going to take a while, in the meantime,
Yeah, what can we do now?
Well, that's why we said we need to get the group that's already working, and let's sit down and start working on a plan.
get you in VIP training.
Right.
I mean, get you, the liaison, Megan's here. Make sure that your neighborhood president has has her number. But I do think ENP, because you're right, in our communities, in our neighborhoods, because everybody is feeling the porch pirates, their cars being my car got bashed in, tried to steal it. And property crime is that is the next thing that we're gonna have to tackle.
And I think that most there's a lot of business owners here who have been meeting since that first incident a couple of months ago. And so we're going to continue to have those meetings. So please see me if you'd like to be a part of that. And I believe very strongly this was helpful, because what came out of this meeting is we have two options to explore. We have a PID option, and we also have a potential MUD or improvement district option. And I will be working with Representative Anchio on the state level site, and I'll also be working with our city council members, and all of you are welcome to participate in that. And so we'll kind of weigh out what the best solution is for us to move forward, and then collectively as a community make that happen. And so thank you so much for your time. I want to give
And make sure Megan's involved.
And we'll make sure Megan's involved as well. And I want to make sure that each of our representatives and and city council members who are up here get a little chance to say something final.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. This is a place where I feel at home, so always glad to come back, and please extend the invitation anytime you want me to come, and we'll be here with our entire team. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for inviting me. I'm happy to participate in any and all planning sessions. I mean, the sad thing is this is happening across our city. It's not, it's happening in our area. And to your point, how do you legislate societal changes? And to Mr. Anchia's point, I mean, it gets stoked with any time there is a blast out. And it's a hard time right now for us. And so be kind, be patient, but I think together we can make it work.
And I would just add to that, it's important that you stay involved. This is not a one-off meeting. This is a process, and it's going to take repeated meetings to examine the alternatives, to develop a plan, and to get action. So please do stay involved in the process.
Just thank you again, Mike, for putting this together, sending me an invitation, and thank you to the Cathedral of Hope for hosting and giving us this space so that we could have a dialogue, and everything they said, just ditto. And don't be afraid to contact your council member is Mr. Ridley or any of us, because we're all willing to help. And especially me as well, because I am a member of this community, and it becomes personal, right, at some point. So, but please stay involved, send those emails, let us know what's going on, because share once you get our LGBT liaisons contact and our community affairs contact, share with them, let DPD know, keep telling them what's going on so that they can also come up with a plan that they're working with this community. And like we just gave an example, 2015, probably lasted for about 3 years that people really stayed involved, and then COVID hit, and, but you know, also things got better, and then that's what always happens is a lot of people show up when it's at the height, and then as things get better, they start to wane off because they feel safe, they feel good again, but crime will always come back. And so that's why we have to just keep our diligence up, and if you see something, say something, call 911. You see something suspicious, you see something that may not look right, call 911. It might take a long time for them to get there, but a patrol officer will get out there at some point, and it might stop something from happening later on. Right.
In the meantime, I suggest everyone get their own body cam. It's very easy to do on Amazon, and invest in pepper spray.
Megan, could you share your email address with everyone?
I will. I'm going to share my email address. You guys have neighborhood police officers that set up Crime Watch meetings, and they happen twice a month. So I don't know if any of you are aware of them, but if you share your email address with me, and I share my email address with you, maybe we can get some more people at the community, the Crime Watch meetings, because it's a very small bunch. So I see a lot of people here. So we want to have more people at the Crime Watch meetings because we do need those stats. And if you guys are ever in the situation where you have a crime committed upon you, to please let me know or my partner Leah know about that if you didn't get the kind of response that you needed from DPD, okay?
Also, with that, I'm just under the umbrella of Office of Community Affairs, but I am Megan's partner. They just don't consider me, a liaison just because technically we have one right now. However, I'm also gonna leave my card on the table for anybody. I live in Oak Cliff. I come out here, I come to all these areas, I come to these restaurants with my friends, so it is also, it hits home for me too, because I'm out here. I'm out here on the weekends just like everybody else is. You know, I'm in my 20s and I want it to be as safe as possible for me, my friends, and my family. So if you have any questions, if there's anything suspicious going on, just give me a call and I'll try and resolve that.
Thank you.
I want to thank everyone for coming out. Just, I received a text message from Lupe Valdez, who's running for sheriff here in Dallas County, and she wanted to let you know she's very sorry she wasn't able to be here. She had 3 other things on her agenda, but when she gets elected sheriff again, she will be here to help and send deputies as needed. So we might want to reach out to her and say thank you. All right, thank you so much for your time.